We help banks and credit unions build profitable, successful, and compliant retail investment divisions. So we're not talking about working with banks to buy bonds for their own investment portfolio. We help them build retail-facing investment divisions to provide the services for their customers.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here with Michael Graham, who's the CEO of Midwestern Securities. Hey, Michael, how's it going?
Good, Andy. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to have you here. Tell me a little bit about what you do at Midwestern Securities.
All right. So Midwestern Securities is a broker-dealer and a registered investment advisor, as well as an MGA for insurance products. We work with financial advisors, but primarily financial advisors inside of community banks. We help banks and credit unions, so I should say financial institutions. We help banks and credit unions build profitable, successful, and compliant retail investment divisions. So we're not talking about working with banks to buy bonds for their own investment portfolio. We help them build retail-facing investment divisions to provide the services for their customers.
Fantastic. Let's dig into that. I love the direction and the positioning in the market. When you stand that up for a bank, tell me a little bit about the scope of that. What do you do for a bank that helps them stand up an investment division?
Yeah, good question. The banks are in need of diversifying their income sources, right? They're in need of providing additional services to their customers. A typical community bank is providing maybe 2 products per household in the financial services arena. The national banks are 8+ products per household. So the community banks know they need to do this. They know that Ben Bernanke in 2009 and Jackson Hole said that banks need to diversify their income sources. But a lot of community banks don't know where to begin with that. They don't have the culture to develop an outbound sales culture. They think sales is often a bad word. So they turn to us. They outsource that investment division to us, and we provide them this very scalable business model with very few fixed expenses. And it starts, though, with us building the program together. We start, first of all, we get contracted with the bank and say, these are our roles and responsibilities and obligations to each other. It's called a third-party brokerage agreement or third-party marketing agreement, also referred to TPB or TPM. And it outlines what our roles and responsibilities are. So we consider this a triangular relationship where you've got us, you've got the bank, and then we find a financial advisor who reports up to both of us. We look at this as the bank, and again, I may use bank or credit union kind of interchangeably. They are our partner, and we are setting common goals. We're building a business plan together, and we're working together to execute this business plan. Once we've got that contract and that triangular relationship in place, then we've got to find the third point of that the triangle, and that's that right financial advisor. So we go to work recruiting, and then once we find that appropriate candidate who fits their culture, our culture, we get them licensed. If they're not licensed, we get them trained. We teach them our sales philosophy, service philosophy, investment philosophy, etc. Then we work with the bank on just a compliance checklist. What do we need to do before we go live? What does the signage need to look like? And then, for example, what's the signage need to look like? And what's the technology need to look like? And then how do we integrate? How do we train the bank staff to understand that we're offering this new product service to their customers? So from recruiting, it goes into training, then into integration, and that's when the real work starts. We've got the business plan written. The advisor is trying to get meetings with customers who need financial advice, ranging from cash management to debt management, risk management. Risk management would be like long-term care, life insurance, disability income, income replacement, investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, Roth IRAs, 401ks, and into estate planning. Do you have the appropriate vehicles in place to protect your family if you are unable or unwilling to make your own decisions financially or healthcare? Our people, once they're in the field, they're not experts in all of those areas, but they're kind of following the CFP type of model, where our deliverable to those customers is advice. And part of that advice may be, you need to meet this attorney, you need to meet this CPA, and coordinating the care for their financial situation. So we're equipping those financial advisors to be servicing those customers in their market. And from there, we provide kind of outsourced sales management to them and coaching. So we're meeting with that advisor at least weekly, talking about what did you do this week? What are you doing next week? Let's talk about things that didn't go well. How can we help you make them better for the next client interaction? Did a client ask you a question that was a stumper? Let's talk through that. How can we be better prepared for that question? Those, when you're working with the financial advisor, those start off very general. How are you integrating into the institution? How are you integrating into the community? And then eventually that advisor gets really good and the questions get really technical, and it becomes much more complicated on down to the plan level that you might be putting together and helping that client integrate. So a lot of times those weekly calls just evolve from activity-oriented calls to very detailed plan-oriented calls. And then we're working with the financial institution, reporting back to them on at least a monthly basis as well. Your program is below expectations, it's at expectations, it's exceeding expectations. What do we need to do more of? What do we need to do less of? And then on beyond that kind of maintenance phase with the financial advisor and the community banker, it becomes looking long-term at their strategic vision. Community banks, community financial institutions really have to change, right? They can't look into the future and compete with the SoFis of the world and the app-based economy, and think that they're going to be here. So they've got to be willing to change. They've got to be proactive, and they've got to give people a reason to work with them. They can, customers can get banking services on their phone if that's all they need. But the things that community financial institutions can't be outcompeted with against the SoFis of the world is their service and their relationships. So we need to meet their relationships with not just fantastic financial services around their commercial loan or their farm loan or their mortgage. We need to meet their needs around general investments. I was in a strategic planning meeting yesterday. There's probably 14, 15 bank board members and employees in it. I think maybe one person in the room had CDs. Everybody in the room had mutual funds. So they have to change and be willing to go where the consumer tastes are, where the marketplace is, and that's what we're here to do, is to help them with that and help them set their strategic course of what do we want this financial institution to look like in 5 years and in 10 years. How much of the bank's income needs to come from non-interest income sources, not just insufficient funds, bounce check fees, right? Overdraft fees. Community banks need to be able to provide additional value additive products and services that help their customers get wealthier and stay wealthier and reduce their risk and reduce their taxes, instead of just punishing customers for bouncing checks, right? That pushes them away from the community bank business model. So we're very involved from the upfront contracting to the training to the long-term strategic vision setting and accountability with our financial institution partners.
Makes a lot of sense, and I love the positioning in the market. When you do this with your partners, let's say you partner with Community Bank X, whoever they may be, are you doing that as Midwestern Securities under that brand, or is it under the brand of the bank itself?
Good question. So our financial advisor, so back to that tri-party relationship, the triangular relationship, the financial advisor is considered a dual employee. According to the Department of Labor, they are an employee of that financial institution. According to the SEC, they're an employee of ours. Of course, technically, they're an independent contractor of ours, and technically, they're bound by an employment agreement and they're W-2'd employee of that financial institution. Our relationship, though, allows for that community bank to hold themselves out as not as the bank, but as a division of the bank, separately named, with the appropriate compliance disclosures and the appropriate spatial limitations inside of that bank. So we have to be clear that customers understand they're not dealing with the traditional side of the bank, but this product and service is offered to them or can be offered to them inside of the bank's walls, but it has to be in a unique and separate office within there. So the customers understand there's different risks and there's different rewards in different areas of the bank. But the top line on the marketing is the local feel. It's the local colors, the local look, the local font. The division is owned locally. The bottom line on the marketing is us. It's securities and investment advisory services offered through Midwestern Securities. So the customers can understand who's really supervising this division. We have a very clean compliance history. Our mantra working with our financial institution partners is to build profitable, successful, and compliant investment divisions. So we spend a lot of time working with those financial institutions, making sure they understand what can go where and where it can't. But we do want this to be theirs, and we want it to be their division that we're really helping them grow and support, without them having to pick up the fixed expenses and the expertise and having to develop that in their particular community.
Love it. It's great. It's such a really interesting way to add value to the end consumer, while at the same time adding value to your partners, who are the banks and credit unions. So great way to carve out that niche in the market. Tell me a little bit about the origin history of the business. It's such an interesting and unique positioning. Usually new businesses, when you guys started out, start with a problem. Tell me a little bit about what the climate was when you guys started it out, and how did you grow the company?
Sure. So I graduated from college in 1995, and I knew I wanted to be a financial advisor. I knew that since I was 3 years old, before I knew what a financial advisor was. My dad was in the financial services industry since 1971, and I knew he had an important job helping people with an important topic, money. Of course, I didn't know much of the details beyond that. When I was in junior high, we had electives in our junior high, and they were basically, you could take 3 non-traditional classes. It was small engine repair, cake decorating, or investments taught by my dad. So I took the investment class. With my part-time job money, paper out, walking beans, detasseling corn, I bought Ameritech stock with that when I was probably 13 years old. And so I've always had an interest in investing, but graduated college in 95 and started talking with my dad, who was at that time was at one of the major wirehouses. And I said, how can I get into the investment business? And he said, I'm trying to figure out how to get out of a New York firm and start my own. And so he said, you're welcome to pursue the big firm path, or you're welcome to come with me. I said, I'm with you. Let's figure this out together. So I kept working my day job. He kept working his day job, and we figured out what parties that we needed to bring to the table. So, we can't just put up a shingle. We have to find a broker dealer and a registered investment advisor to hold our licenses, to provide our continuing ed, to supervise all of our transactions, to pre-approve our advertising, all that back office stuff. We needed to find that right partner. Then we needed to find the custodian or clearing firm partner. And then we needed to find the tech platform that we needed, and then the research vendors. And so it was a great opportunity for me as a 22-year-old to travel around and interview these different companies and get a real good, kind of the proverbial master's degree in what goes on behind an investment firm. So as we did that, I started working at the new firm. My dad kept working at his prior firm. And then he resigned from that. And then we started operating under our retail branch name called John Graham and Associates. And that was in May of 1996. We had outsourced to a broker dealer to be that backstage for us. They got bought by a publicly traded company. And 98, 99, we were one of their 10 largest offices. And we couldn't get advertising approved in a timely fashion. We had trouble getting things that should have been very easy for compliance to approve. We had trouble getting any of it done. So I went to Bradley University, which is just across the river from us here in central Illinois, and worked with the Turner Center for Entrepreneurship and the head of that program there named Ken Klotz, and wrote a business plan to become our own broker dealer and our own RIA. And then we went to a community bank across the river here and said, we've got this plan. We've got a customer, our firm, John Graham and Associates. We've got some experience and knowledge, and we need a little bit more capital to help us get this started. They supported us. We started Midwestern Securities, and our first customer was our own branch. Right behind that, though, came so we started that filing in 1999. We completed it in spring of 2000, and then the dot-com bubble happens, right, in 2000 to 2002. And then the banking industry really starts to hyper accelerate. One of the world's largest insurance companies is about 35 miles down the street from us here. They started a bank without ever building a branch. I think they became the fifth largest bank almost overnight by distributing it through their agents, distributing banking products through their agents. At that time, there was a Wall Street Journal article about Bank of America talking about how they were going to come to all the small towns and really disrupt community banking by building branches. Looking back, what a terrible business model that would have been if Bank of America did spend all of that money on that branch development throughout rural America. But anyways, these things were happening. So we started calling on community bankers and saying, do you see what's happened? The agent across the street's now competition. Bank of America is training their people really well to be proactive salespeople, and they want to come to your town. Community banking in the Midwest and throughout the country, but specifically Illinois, our home state. Illinois, I think, has the most amount of community bank charters out of all 50 states. I think Texas is second. But so we started talking to the community bankers that the threats are changing. Your way of life is changing. We want to help you recognize that, and we want to prepare your financial institution for the next generation. So that was kind of the impetus to the starting of Midwestern, and then our development of the niche inside of the community financial institution space.
Love it. Love it. Such a great story and great history in context of what was happening in the marketplace. Love the entrepreneurial spirit of all of that, and kind of understanding the macro drivers and down to the micro, what's happening on the street here locally, and providing value right out of the gate there. And clearly you've been through a few market cycles here now to have seen a lot, 2007, for example, and just various market conditions. When you're working with the banks and you're working with your financial advisors, tell me a little bit about the path that you create for the end customer. So let's say I'm an end customer. I'm going to one of your financial advisors that is the joint team member with you and the bank. What's their path? How do they advise somebody like me to say, here's how I'll help you create a financially sound future?
Sure. So not all of our people are certified financial planners. I am, many of our advisors are, and we have the culture of the planning process throughout our institution. We really take the position that our job is to provide communication and leadership to our clients to help them accomplish their goals, whatever is important to them. So with that in mind, we take a process where we start with the financial advisor meeting with the client and basically agreeing to kind of the terms of the relationship, or the terms of the discussion anyways. We're not even saying, it's a relationship yet, it's a discussion. The prospective client meets with the advisor virtually like this or in person, and the advisor is trained to do a financial interview. And the financial interview is, Andy, tell me about yourself. And we want basics of, age, relationship status, children, grandchildren, income sources, assets, checking, savings, money markets, 401ks, Roth IRAs, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, et cetera. And then we transition from assets into debt. Tell us about that. You have this home. Do you own or do you rent? What do you think the fair market value is? How much do you owe? What interest rate? What financial institution is that at? You can easily see how this overlays to add extra value to the customer. We're looking at everything. Right? They don't have, I've got this car loan here, I've got this mortgage at this other bank, I've got this business loan at that bank, I've got this old 401k at that old vendor. We're trying to tie everything together to make it easier for them. But the aligned benefit of this is the bank can solve most of these problems, right? They can help with the cash reserves. They can help potentially with debt refinance. So a financial advisor in that institution brings a lot more tools to help that client simplify their life and improve their financial situation. But the advisor walks that prospective client through those topics: cash, debt, risk, estate planning, and investments, and then pauses and says, all this doesn't really matter if we don't understand what's important to you. What's important to you? And that's the awkward question. A lot of people, well, to make more money, I had to get a higher return. No, that's not what's really important to you. What's really important to you? Well, I want to be able to retire when I want. I want to be able to retire young. Well, why? Well, my dad died of cancer early. I don't want that. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. What's really important to you? My kids. Well, what about your kids? Well, I want to be able to spend more time with them. Okay, does that mean a second home, right? Does that mean more traveling? Does that mean college funds for grandkids? But that's the real important question: is what's important to you? All of these other investment vehicles are just stuff. They're commoditized stuff that anybody can get. 20,000 mutual funds and every publicly traded stock and every publicly traded bond. Our advisors need to be able to connect with the clients and help them make this plan work so that they can sleep at night, and that their goals get accomplished. Their goals get accomplished in a very transparent and cost-effective way. But that isn't where it ends. Of course, it starts with that opening financial interview. Then we teach the financial advisor how to do an assessment. Okay, these are Andy's facts. These are Andy's values. And then we write what we call a narrative for how do we want this next discussion with Andy to go. So we'll get back together in a week or two and we'll say, Andy, this is what you told us last week. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Well, these are the things that we want to talk about. We want to come back to your cash, your debt, your risk, estate, investments. This is how we think about these topics. This is why we think this way about these topics. This is where you are. And this is where we think we can improve your situation. And these are the steps and these are the costs to put in place to improve your situation. Does this make sense, Andy? Do you want to hire us to move forward and implement this? And that's it. There's no high pressure process. It's just an honest, sincere discussion. And if at the end of the day it's a fit, then we've got a client, and probably a client for life. And if it's not a fit, we've certainly added value and given that person something to think about. Maybe they'll implement it with their other financial advisor. Maybe they'll come back to us in 2 years or 3 years when some life event happens. But there's no gimmicks. It's just really a straightforward discussion with our best ideas, trying to help improve our clients' situations. And when we're dealing in a variety of communities, we need to make sure that the end client is getting a very similar, excellent investment experience. Professional, courteous, we've got communication goals, and a very similar investment philosophy. We are not a publicly traded firm that is full of independence and everybody's independent because they want to do their own thing and they want the product of the day, or this person has this strategy and this person has that strategy. We have a very consistent investment philosophy that we've seen success with, and that's what we stick to. We stick to what we consider the investing basics and the planning basics.
Congratulations on growing such a great business. I can see how you bring value to your clients, who are the banks, how you bring value to the end customer who is looking for investment advice, and even creating new jobs for these investment advisors to be able to help, create new opportunities for them too. So it's really such an interesting business, and it's been a pleasure talking with you about it. Tell me, and anybody who's listening here, how can they find you?
So you can find us www.midwesternsecurities.com, or feel free to call us on our 800 number, 800-732-8601.
Wonderful. Well, Michael, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you, Andy. I really enjoyed it as well.
Wonderful. Michael Graham from Midwestern Securities. Thank you.